Okay, I think we can start. First of all, I'm very delighted to moderate this session this afternoon because after an intensive morning, and now we have the chance to go into details about the novelties, the concrete features of the EIC enhanced pilots. As you know, we have two main pilots, Pathfinder and Accelerator. In a while, a number of commission officers will join the stage, and they will help us to better understanding all the concrete details, the operation, the novelties, both of Pathfinder and Accelerator. It's very important because, first of all, we are talking about an important financial allocation for this pilot. We're talking about a budget of more than 2 billion euros, and also because those pilots will represent a test bed towards the next 7 years of Horizon Europe. Before starting, let me thank who made possible this event. So first of all, the Commission, because this event falls into the EIC roadshow, the European campaign of the European Commission across Europe. Thank you very much to be here with the director, with many officers. Thank you to all the speakers, to the participants, and of course, let me thank on behalf of APRE also the Intesa San Paolo group because, for this great hospitality. Well, please take your device now, please take your mobile, because before starting, I would like to play with you for a couple of minutes. And maybe the control room can switch on menti.com. We would like to test, first of all, your knowledge about the European Innovation Council, and also we would like to better understand the organization you are from. So, first of all, go to menti.com, or menti.com. Afterwards, you have to enter this code 479873. Enter this code and you will get access to our dedicated session, menti.com, and then enter the code 479873. Did you manage to get access? Please say yes. Yes, okay. So we have the first question, very simple. Let's move to the other slide. What about the organization you are from? Are you an SME? Are you a university? You are from university, research centers, finance? It's useful for us to better understand who is in front of us. Please vote. You can choose only one option. Okay, maybe we have already first results to show. Okay, there's a number of SMEs. Let's say the first three columns, I could say there are a lot of potential applicants, both SMEs or researchers from universities and research center. We have a number of public institutions and people representative from the finance world, venture capitalists, banks, of course, plus other. For other, I think we're talking about support services, EN, some representatives from Confindustria, chambers of commerce, and so on. So we have a well-balanced, let's say, audience. Okay. Next question. I would ask you to rate. It's a kind of self-assessment, but very easy. Please rate your knowledge on EIC from 1, which means a very low knowledge, to 5, which is the maximum score. You are an expert. From 1 to 5. Exactly in the middle, which seems to be a good compromise. Okay, it's perfect. We are Italian, we are going to bargain, so it's, no? Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite the Commission's officers to join the stage. So we start from Martin Lange, Natasha Lai, and Luis Sanchez Alvarez. Thank you very much to be here. Okay. Please have a seat, as you like. Have a seat. I just prepared one slide to better introduce this session. It's about the several funding schemes under the EIC Enhanced Pilot. So we can move to my presentation. Because we heard this morning that the EIC Enhanced Pilot main aim is to support innovators, which might be researchers, SMEs, startups, and so on, from the idea generation up to the commercialization of this idea. And to do that, there are a number of different instruments under EIC. Of course, EIC is one of the instruments under Horizon 2020. There are also other instruments. By the way, the target of EIC is exactly the innovators. Maybe you know this technology readiness level scale or classification. It's a taxonomy, the classic taxonomy under Horizon 2020 to assess the degree of development of maturity of a technology. We can see that if we move to talk about the EIC Enhanced Pilot schemes or funding instruments, we are simplifying, of course, but it's good to try to orient ourselves in the, in the range of the several instruments. The Pathfinder mainly deals with basic research, breakthrough research, low TRLs. So it's basically the first part of this slide. Afterwards, we have, and when we talk about the first part, I'm talking about the former FET Open and FET Proactive. Then we have other instruments still under the Pathfinder, which are called Transition to Innovation Activities and Innovation Launchpad. As you can see, the aim of those instruments is to move forward across the, let's say, the scale of technology readiness. We start going out the lab, validation, first validation, maybe first demonstration also in a real environment, industrial relevant environment. Afterwards, in this, let's say, theoretical PET, we can consider another opportunity, which is the EIC accelerator, especially the grant part, dealing with helping SMEs, startups, especially in the pre-industrialization, pre-commercialization phase, as well as the SME phase 2 did so far. And then we have a big novelty, which is the equity part, blended finance and equity part of the EIC accelerator to better support companies in the market uptake and market deployment. Now, because of the fact we are understanding that this equity part, is developing day by day, if we well understood, but we did not manage to change the slide, the equity contribution could intervene even in previous stages of development. Even because, as we will see this afternoon, the equity part will be negotiated with the Commission and the EIC fund, former special purpose vehicle, we changed name now, so EIC fund, as soon as the grant will be, let's say, finalized with the Commission, we'll start the due diligence for a company, and you will be able to negotiate with the EIC fund let's say, the equity part. This is just as introduction. Now we have the chance to get more insights on all the instruments from our speakers. I will introduce Martin Lange from Research Executive Agency. Martin, I just prepared some bullet points that could address your presentation, but I'm sure that in the next 20 minutes you will be able to share a lot of practical details on the Pathfinder and the several instruments under the Pathfinder. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. me and my colleagues, we have basically shared this presentation in which we would like to tell you more details about the practical possibilities for applying funding. For funding in the future under the EIC Pathfinder pilot. You have already received, I think, a very good idea of the spirit of the EIC and the enhanced EIC pilot this morning in the session. So myself, I will, as was explained by Antonio, I will focus on the EIC Pathfinder pilot, the part, and the part on the EIC accelerator has been split up by my colleagues, between my colleagues Luis and Natasha. So let me start with a slide that you have actually already seen this morning. Nevertheless, I wanted to repeat it because I think it illustrates quite nicely the spirit of the EIC Pathfinder. The Pathfinder, as you know, a Pathfinder is somebody you send out into the unknown to try to find out what is out there, what is going to happen. And when we look at some of these elements, like for example these question marks that you see there, we don't know which will be the technology of the future that will have a disruptive impact on our life. And this has happened in the past, as you've seen. You have several examples there where indeed those innovations have disrupted our lives and are currently still disrupting our life. But nevertheless, the FET open part, the bottom-up part, is really an instrument to identify those kind of question marks, to make a transition from science, things that are currently still investigated in science, for example, and to make a bridge towards a potential future technology. And on the other hand, you have some of these topics that you can see there. Liquid biopsies has been mentioned before. Quantum computing, also artificial intelligence, which are already out there. We can see that there's an emerging trend, and the aim of exactly the FET proactive part of the EIC Pathfinder is to help developing these communities around these emerging trends. So this is just in a brief summary the spirit of the EIC Pathfinder. And nevertheless, I have a second point I would like to make on this slide, which is about when you look in more detail at these future technologies, what we expect, that they are very, very strongly based on research. And research is an important element that needs to be done in order to develop these kind of technologies. So that is why also the EIC Pathfinder will be based on advanced research. Our aim is, within this EIC Pathfinder in the future, to develop a kind of trend, what we call deep tech, made in Europe, to really put this as a basic, at the basis of the future developments in Europe, and not to forget, indeed, to have a strong research base and to connect the researchers with the entrepreneurial part that is needed to develop these kind of deep tech startups. Another important element that is on this slide is the collaborative aspect. It is very important at this stage of developments where something is emerging to have indeed the collaborations, not only between the researchers and the entrepreneurs, but also between different disciplines. We see that very often these disciplines operate in and are connecting people that are usually not used to work together. So this is an important characteristic also of the EIC Pathfinder. It is to really make sure that researchers, high-tech SMEs start working together in these different disciplines. Now, a summary. What are we concretely putting on the table in the next couple of years? We have the Pathfinder pilot, which has indeed been launched a few months ago, which will give possibilities to develop visionary ideas that that innovators can put forward and to help them developing them into radical and innovation technologies. And then, in the next step, under the accelerator pilot, to help them really developing them also commercially to help high-tech SMEs, startups, spin-offs from universities to ensure a quick growth with the help of accelerator funding. The existing programs that are going to support this pilot are already there for several years, as was also explained this morning. So this has happened in the past under the Future and Emerging Technology Scheme. So also the Pathfinder pilot will be very heavily based upon this scheme and will then be complemented also by some additional activities that I will explain later. On the other hand, the accelerator pilot consists also of the SME instrument phase 2 and the fast track to innovation, so the grant-only part, plus, and this is the optional equity part, the blended finance. Complemented to this financial help, and we've learned also this morning that it's of course important element to have the finance ready, but as important I think is to create the right environment for these ideas to flourish, and that's why we're complementing this funding with coaching services, with mentoring services, and other type of business acceleration services for not only the SMEs actually, but also the EIC beneficiaries. That can be research organizations, universities as well, at least certain parts of it. Now, Luis will also explain some more details about the Horizon prizes, the EIC Horizon prizes, and the further support actions that we are going to, that are actually already launched, and I think the deadlines are approaching, so by the end of 2020 we will have the deadlines for applying for these kind of inducement prizes. It has been also already announced this morning that we have now selected a group, I think, of 22 innovators who are going to support us in setting up the EIC under Horizon Europe. So we will work very closely with this group of selected entrepreneurs, investors, individuals, in order to develop the pilot in the next 2 years, but also to help us in enhancing innovation ecosystems and the overall strategy that the EIC will take under Horizon Europe. What are the novelties compared to the past? I think an important element of novelty is that we do not only support from the early stage proof of concept research like we have done so far under the FET part, but also we go a step further. We try to do some complementary funding in order to make sure that the results can be brought forward up to a stage where it might actually result in a sort of a product which can then be brought onto the market for commercial viability. Another novelty is that we have integrated the FET proactive part now into the Pathfinder pilot, and that we will work together with some top people in the field, with program managers who will help us develop specific topics and to bring them further in terms of technology readiness of certain areas. Yeah. I've already mentioned the business acceleration services before, and then a new funding scheme that is going also to happen, and where the first deadline will actually be already beginning of October, are these kind of transition to innovation activities. And I will now explain to you in more detail about these novelties. But let us start about what is already happening now, and this is the so-called FET Open part. So this is the part where we aim to help beneficiaries develop a radical idea, to bring forward this idea that might be based on just some scientific principles, and to help them making a transition from science to technology. And these projects that we fund are actually not any kind of blue sky research projects, but they have to fulfill 3 very important criteria, which we call the FET gatekeepers. So when you put forward a proposal for such a FET Open grant, you have to make sure that the proposal contains a radical vision of a even long-distance future, sometimes, how your new technology might change the world. Then you need to explain, secondly, how you will actually achieve a very concrete target within the lifetime of your project that will help you enabling this kind of radical vision. And you also need to explain that it's not only incremental research that you are carrying out, but that it has to be absolutely ambitious and interdisciplinary. And at the end of such a project, you should have a proof of concept ready that will allow you to take the further next steps in order to really grow this kind of technology to something that is that can be exploited also at a later moment. Very important, this is a call which is not focused on thematics. Yeah? It is completely bottom-up. We welcome ideas from any kind of research area. So it can be from life sciences, physics, ICT, engineering, and it is also continuously open. We still have 2 deadlines until May 2020 coming. The typical project is also very important. It is a collaborative project. So it has to have minimum 3 partners from 3 different EU member states or associated countries. And it can then be added, the other partners can be added to that consortium at will. We see that the typical projects have 5 to 6 partners. They are also, average grant size is around 3 million with a duration between 3 and 4 years. So in this sense, it is important also to say that we have, as I said, any kind of scientific discipline that is being funded at the moment, and it goes up to proof of concept. On top of that, once we basically see that certain technology areas are emerging, we launch specific topics under the FET Proactive scheme. So this is really a process that has already started actually a long time ago, where we do a public consultation. So we ask really everybody in the world can input to this consultation. We ask what are the emerging paradigms around certain technology areas. And then we work together with some external advisors that we have, the FET Advisory Group, and also the member state representatives in the FET Program Committee on defining in more detail these kind of topics. So here you see the list of, in total, 6 topics that are basically published at the moment or will be published in 2020, and where you can actually apply these kind of proposals with a indicative size between 4 and 5 million. So these are also research and innovation actions, collaborative ones, with a minimum of 3 partners from 3 EU member states or associated countries, and around specific topics. So, for example, here we have the artificial intelligence topic, but not only any kind of artificial intelligence, but we want to see how this artificial intelligence can be developed in such a way that the human is really put at the center of it. Because, as you probably know, artificial intelligence in the general public can raise certain concerns. So it is important to also address this issue from human point of view. How can we develop this further? Then there's a second topic in 2019, which deals with basically medical devices and materials, which should be implantable and autonomous. So here we have a clear link to health sciences as well. And secondly, and thirdly, very important topic, climate, of course. So what we want to do is to fund the technology angle to this very important issue, which is dealing basically with some sort of a zero emissions energy generation that we want to fund that will help us in fully decarbonizing also the atmosphere. There are 3 further topics that will be launched then in next year, where the call deadline will be in May. The first one is basically about the future of social media. So any kind of future technologies which you could develop and think of for a social experience. The second one is related to metrology, so the science of measurements. It is focusing on extremely small scales, so sub-nanoscales, that means measurements that can be done at atomic level, where we want to fund technologies or ideas for these kind of technologies that can have such an impact. And last but not least, a topic that is dealing with digital twins. And digital twins are basically processes, simulations that are nowadays more and more used to simulate industrial processes that are running in parallel with such industrial processes and that can be steered depending on the inputs from those measurements that are carried out in the process. However, the topic itself is to have these digital twins now expanded towards the life sciences. So the aim is here that basically these kind of computer scientists work together with people from the life sciences in order to jointly create those kind of digital twins. So these are the topics that are open to anybody to apply. It is collaborative research. However, there is now a certain element, a new type of element that makes part of the Pathfinder, which is basically, on one hand, what we call the innovation launchpad, and on the other hand, the transition to innovation activities. And these are both activities that will fund the results coming from the former FET Open or FET Proactive projects. So what we are doing there is making it open not only for the researchers who have created the results under these projects, but for anybody to use these results and to develop them further, provided that you have the agreement of the owner of the results, obviously, which needs to be presented at the level of the proposal submission. And these launchpad projects, they are small, very small grants, 100,000 euro, and very important, they are so-called coordination and support actions, which means that they are not funding as a main part the research or development, but they should rather fund complementary studies like market analysis, business cases, technology assessments, or IPR studies. These are actually open also for single beneficiaries. Doesn't have to be as a part of a consortium, but it can also be a consortium. And complementary to that, we have the so-called transition to innovation activities. So these are also research and innovation activities, collaborative ones. Yeah? So here it is very important that you work together, and here the minimum requirement is, as before, that you must have 3 partners from 3 different member states or from associated countries. And this must also be heavily based on certain research to development to validation activities. Yeah? So it is focused also on these results that have been created before, as I've explained, but it must be limited, or it must fit into one of these areas of targeted technologies that are mentioned here. So you have the micro and nanotechnologies, you have artificial intelligence and advanced robotics, technologies for life sciences, health and treatment, energy technologies, interaction technologies, which is, I think, still a very, very broad definition and a lot of possibilities for applicants. And then, let me go back one slide, because I've seen that I actually forgot to mention one specific topic, also under the FET Proactive part, related to the environmental intelligence. Climate is, again, a very important topic, and here We also provide in 2020 the possibility for researchers and innovators to either develop new techniques or for creating and using new dynamic models of environmental evolution. Yeah? So this is more the kind of modeling topic, or another topic which is more experimental. So based on in situ monitoring of certain elements that are existing in the environment that are at this moment not very well documented, in order to have novel approaches to measure these elements that can have an influence on these kind of on the environment. Okay, very concretely, we have these funding opportunities under FED Open until 2020, still two cutoffs. And by the way, the funding and the budget allocated to those cutoffs have never been higher. So we have in September a budget of 160 million, in May even close to 200 million euro, while the recent success rates actually have increased quite a lot. So the last cutoff where we have communicated the results just a few days ago had a success rate of more than 13%, which is much higher than it used to be. Under FED Proactive, you have these first three different topics, a deadline in October. The second deadline is in April 2020, which includes the topic on environmental intelligence. Then you have for the Innovation Launchpad 2 further cutoffs, while for the transition to innovation activities, another one in October. All the proposals are also have their specific evaluation criteria, so they are not the general ones that usual research and innovation actions have in Horizon 2020. But under excellence, for example, they are very much aligned to the FED gatekeepers that I explained to you earlier. And because of the important factor of having some science to technology transition in these kind of projects and proposals, also the emphasis is more put on the excellence than on impact and implementation, which is not for the transition activities and for the Innovation Launchpad, where indeed, because of the character of these activities, we basically have 40% for impact. Another novelty, which I think should be disseminated as widely as possible also amongst the Italian research community, is the call for vacancies that has now been opened yesterday for the EIC program managers. And why is this important? Because these EIC program managers will work with a specific portfolio of projects in a certain topic, and they will ensure that we are able to provide a flexible and proactive management of this portfolio and not only a passive one. So the aim and the most area of activity of those program managers will actually be in those topics that we have presented, that I have presented earlier under the FED Proactive part. We think we have put on the table an offer that is attractive enough to also attract top people from research institutes, from industry, also entrepreneurs who would come to us for a few years to the Commission. They would receive a temporary Commission contract and will help us in developing this kind of visionary thinking that we need for the EIC in the future. Okay, I think the most important element that we want to achieve and what is the most novel element under the EIC Pathfinder is the element of connecting. We want to make sure that we are connecting the world of the researchers and of the scientists, which is, as we have learned earlier, a very strong asset for us in Europe. And we want to make sure that these ideas that are brought from this research community are also taken up and that we do something with these results in terms of exploitation. And this can be done in several ways. And we have very good examples, for example, of companies that are involved from the very beginning in Fed Open projects. And actually, there is a high number of high-tech SMEs involved. We have, in total, 70% of our Fed Open projects do have high-tech SMEs on board. So it's already a very high number. But this is only one way of getting this, something done with the results. Another way is via these transition activities or the innovation launchpad activities, where we want to connect entrepreneurs, people who want to do something with the results, to the world of researchers and scientists. And we're fully aware that not every scientist, not every researcher wants to be an entrepreneur, and this is also completely fine. But we need to make the connections that ensure that for the sake of Europe and the future that we all have, that these results are done, are used and are not just hidden somewhere in the closet where they are doing nothing. So I think this is a very good example of a success case that we had in the past. There are several others, but unfortunately I think my time is up. And I will just like to recommend you to follow some of these links that I think are on the slides and which will later be also redistributed to you. But nevertheless, we have the next presentation coming up for the EIC Accelerator.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you. Well, one practical information, all those slides will be uploaded in the APRE website and Access for SMEs website, so don't worry if you miss some slides, because next week you can easily download from the website all the presentations, all the material of today. Thank you, Martin. Basically, we understood that we have 4 different instruments under the Pathfinder. The Fed Open, let's say, Pathfinder Fed Open, Fed Proactive with some specific macro topics of interest, the Innovation Launchpad and the transition to innovation activities. About those 2 instruments, I think it's very important also to give visibility to the existing Fed project, the running Fed project, because it's possible to build on those existing projects. And I know my colleague Marta Calderaro later on will share some practical, let's say, tips for this. Let's move again on menti.com, because as you can see from the agenda, there is in the end of this session a Q&A session, questions and answers. It will be not a direct session, because we will use again after each presentation this menti.com to collect some, let's say, questions from the audience. And we pre-selected some of the most common questions that we collected from you, from some of you in the next few days, in the last few days. As you can see about the Pathfinder, the Martin presentation, we selected, I hope you can read easily on your smartphone, the 8 questions. You can choose some of them. In the end, after the Luis presentation, we will collect the most common questions, and Martin will be so kind to reply and provide further clarification. Now, let's move to the Natasha Lai presentation. We're talking about the EIC Accelerator, especially the grant part of the EIC Accelerator built on the SME instrument phase 2 experience. As you know, Natasha, in Italy, as well as Fed Open SME instrument, has been really appreciated by the companies. There was a lot of interest for SME instrument. So please, Natasha, let us know what is changing with the new EIC Accelerator. Thank you very much.
Okay. Just check the slides. Okay. Okay, thanks a lot, Antonio. Yes, indeed, I would like now to introduce the Accelerator Pilot. That is another funding scheme that is, of course, proposed in the announced EIC pilot. And as we always say, the Accelerator Pilot is very much based on the SME instrument phase 2. So as in Italy, the SME instrument has been a very successful funding scheme, and there was a lot of participation and interest. I think there will be a lot of features that you will recognize. But I would like also to stress, especially in the first part of my presentation, the main differences, because as devil is in the details, sometimes you will see that these differences might make the difference at the moment of the evaluation of the proposals. Concerning the accelerator pilot, just quoting the definition that are in the official documents, especially in the work program and all the official documents that you've probably already read. The accelerator pilot aims at supporting high-risk and high-potential companies to develop and to bring to the market new processes, new products, a new business model, and that have especially the high potential to drive an economic growth. This is a funding scheme that is addressed to ambitious and innovative companies that would like to have as ambition to shape new market or eventually to disrupt existing ones. This new funding scheme aims also at creating and promoting the co-investment. So you will see that for the first time, there will be the possibility not to go only for the grant support, but also for a blended finance option that contemplate the grant plus equity support for a total amount of support, financial support of 17.5 million euros. But then I will explain more in details how they will be divided. And of course, the final aim is, of course, to bridge the financial gap between the late-stage innovation activities and the market take-up. As it was rightly said this morning, the grant support is not enough. The company receives support for developing the products, for developing the projects, for the deployment phase, that it doesn't receive enough support for the market deployment, for the market take-up. And this is the gap that the accelerator aims at filling. Okay, of course, we ask, you will be probably wondering who are the actors, who are the companies that the accelerator is targeting. We talk here about individual SMEs, but it's not fully correct in the sense that this is one of the main differences between the SME instrument and the accelerator. It is not only targeted to SMEs, established SMEs, but it also allows startups and young companies to participate. Another big difference is the type of participant is mono-beneficiary participant. Of course, the majority of the participants in SME instruments, by statistics, we know were mono-beneficiaries, but it was not forbidden to be part of a consortium of SMEs. This time, with the accelerator, only mono-beneficiaries can participate. The companies should be established in a member state of an associated countries to the Horizon 2020 program. The program is also fully bottom-up, as it was also the case in the first pilot, EIC pilot. It means that all the sector products and services can be funded. Only projects that has a negative impact on the environment should be avoided. But apart from this, even cross-sectorial topics can be funded. What about the support? For the grant part, the support is not changing very much from the past. Actually, we have a financial support that can vary from 500,000 euros to 2.5 million and are refunded according to the 70% of total eligible costs for the projects. These are costs that are covering all the activities that are related to the development of the projects. Of course, the projects that go with the equity options, they will receive an extra support that has been estimated on up to 15 million euros. There is the possibility to go for grant only, but also this is up to the companies. We will see a bit in another slide how it will be possible at the moment of submission of the proposal, but for grant equity is also an option. Only equity is not an option yet. It might be a possibility in the next framework program. If we want to summarize a bit the difference between a grant and equity, not really the difference, but what they are targeting, the grant is covering all the early stage innovation for development, and we can consider the equity covering early stage and mature innovation for scale up. So the grant is covering more the development of the project, and the equity, the scaling up and the market deployment. The proposal, as I was saying before, you can submit a proposal declaring that you want to have a grant only, but in the proposal template it's also possible to to give the consent that the evaluators consider that some of the activities can be covered by the equity, even if you don't think at the moment of submission of the proposals that it is the case. This is particularly important because if this consent is not given and the company doesn't provide evidence that all the activities related to the market deployment and the activities that are above tier 8 and 9, there is not evidence that the financial support is ensured, the proposal might be rejected. So it's very important that if you don't think at the beginning that you will go for equity, but the evaluators discover that some of the activities will be covered, give the consent as some of the amount that you request for grants will be transferred to the equity part. This flexibility is very important to bear in mind when you are submitting your proposal. The main novelties concerning the evaluation part also regard the criteria, the award criteria, because you will see there are the same as the first in the name as the first pilot, so impact, excellence, and quality and efficiency of implementation, but the weight is different. It's different because we don't have the impact counting for 50% and the other two criteria for 25% each, but each criteria counts for 33%. This is also important because it's not only a question of weight, it's also a question of content. The three criteria are very well defined in the work program, and you will see that they count equally because, for example, there is an important part that is the risk that is evaluating towards each criteria. That's why this is, it gives equal importance to all the criteria. The evaluation not only takes into account the criteria, especially in the remote phase, the TRL is checked and also the operational capacity of the company. If the company has requested the equity component, bear in mind that after the evaluation, the company is also subject to due diligence, but this will be explained better by my colleague Luis later. For the time to inform, we have the months of the date of application. I don't know because it's missing, it's 3 months from date of the application. The time to grant is 6 months for the grant part, up to 6 months. So we try to be as fast as possible. So normally, at the moment, we manage to do it in less than 5 months, but okay, we have this time frame, and we try to be as fast as possible. For the equity part, if the companies that are also requesting the equity will start 1 month after the ranking list has been published, and it might take up to 6 months. This doesn't mean that the companies that requested grant plus equity, they have to wait until the due diligence is finished and they receive an offer for the equity for starting the grant part. There are two parallel processes. The grant part could start even before, and the equity part will become later, and hopefully there are no problems with the due diligence, so the two processes will be running parallel. Just explain a bit more in details the steps, the different steps in a slide. So the submission of proposal is, for example, the next cutoff, very practically, the next cutoff is on the 9th of October, and it still is already open. So now you can start submitting the proposal that will be evaluated after the cutoff date. So after the cutoff date, these proposals will be assigned to evaluators for the remote assessment, and there will be a ranking list after more or less 2 weeks. This remote evaluation will give us a draft ranking list where we can select the companies that will go directly to the second step of evaluation. This part of evaluation has not changed in the sense that it was already introduced by the first EIC pilot with the interview step, and the companies that are invited to the interview step are the double of the companies. The number of the company is corresponding to the double of the budget that is allocated for this cutoff. After the interview phase, the company that are considered successful for funding, they will start the grant preparation. They will receive a letter announcing that they are successful, and they will start the grant preparation. And if they requested grant plus equity, or they are evaluated for the grant plus equity part, they will start the due diligence process after more or less 1 month's time. Concerning the application form, this is also a novelty. There is a single template that you can now find in the founder attenders portal that has changed its name. It was participant portal before. So you can find a single template that covers the two options. You have just indicate in the template which for the two options you want, or maybe you want both, or you want only grant but give the consent in case some of activities might be transferred to the equity part. Some additional information will be requested, of course, to the participants that go for the due diligence part in case they are evaluated successfully for grant plus equity, but this will be in a second stage. The new application form is composed on two parts, Part A and Part B, as before. The Part A is more organizational, administrative data regarding the consortium, and the second part, the Part B, contains several documents. One of them, of course, is the one that covers the three criteria and where you have to explain the evaluation, the novelty or the innovation that you are proposing. So essentially what is the project about. And the other documents are more related to the second document is related to the CV, to the ethical part, to the subcontractors. The third document, which is a novelty, very important one, is an Excel table where there are a lot of financial data that might be requested. So if you have them, fill in them if you have as much as possible, because this is important for the commission, for the evaluators to establish if you have secured financial investment, if you need the support, if you are bankable, not bankable. So whatever you have as a data, even if as a new company or you have projections, please fill in the table. And another very important novelty is the pitch deck. The pitch deck is the presentation that is used by the company invited to the interview stage. But in the first EIC pilot, the pitch deck needed to be sent 1 week or 10 days before the interview part. In the new accelerator pilot, the pitch deck is part of the submission form, so you have to send it immediately, even if you are not sure that one day will be invited to an interview. And this is particularly important that you dedicate time to prepare this pitch deck, because it cannot be modified later, at a later stage. So whatever you submit, it will be used for the interview. The interview, okay, I've just already said, but to repeat, is in two stages of evaluation, the remote part and the face-to-face interviews. Who is evaluating the companies? Experts, independent experts in technology, business, and finance. For the face-to-face interviews, we have a jury of high-level experts that is published every year, so it's accessible, so you can see the name, which is also very important because the company at the moment of submission of proposal can also indicate up to three names of evaluators that prefer not to be involved in the evaluation of the proposal, explaining that probably they have conflict of interest or they prefer that are not involved. There are three possible outcomes for the selection, for the evaluation procedure. One is the go decision, that is final score A after the interviews. It means that the company has been considered successful for funding and they will receive a letter. There is also the no-go decision, that is the final score B. So as before, the company is not considered successful for funding and the proposal is rejected. And then we have the third option, that is change into blind and final decision, which essentially is an A, for a company that initially has submitted a proposal for only grant but gave consent to transfer store activities. So in this case, the evaluators, the jury has decided to change part of the financial support into blended finance decision. Okay, this was the end of my presentation. So if you have any question later.
Thank you so much, Natasha. First of all, I will kindly invite you to go again on menti.com for the second last time this afternoon. In the meantime, Natasha, we heard that there are some changes even in the application form compared to the previous SME phase 2, with a renewed attention to the financial information, go-to-market strategy, financial strategy. There is another detail. It's not a detail because on a practical point of view, it's important for the company to highlight again that now the pitch deck should be uploaded, should be ready once the proposal has uploaded. So at the time of the submission, not after the selection for the interview. So it's an additional effort for you. I remind that this pitch deck is more or less a 10 pages, 10 slides pitch deck, including the summary of your proposal. So here we are with menti.com. Feel free to select the most interesting questions for you about the accelerator grant, about the Natasha presentation, and of course Natasha will be able to reply after the Luis presentation. Luis, you have the last presentation about the blended finance and the equity part of the accelerator. We heard this morning that there's a lot of interest, of course, on this big novelty or revolution for somebody. We know also that some operational details will be ready in the next few weeks or months. It's a learning by doing process. By the way, please share all the details you can share at this stage about the equity and the blended finance. Thank you. Your presentation is coming.
Okay. Okay, so first, I would like to clarify one point that I think maybe at the beginning was not with your nice slide, Antonio, on the TRL and the application of the equity part that sometimes I understand is complicated. So the aim of the accelerator at the end is to somehow ensure that the innovation is deployed, goes to the market. The grant part, not because we don't want to cover other TRLs, it's because of the competition rules can only cover TRL 6 to 8. So this is the reason why we only give grants for TRL 6 and 8. For other TRLs, but even for TRL 6, 7, 8, you can use the equity, because the equity is part of the company assets. It's the capital of the company. And one of the advantages of the equity is that can be used by the company as the company sees best.
Luis,
So
it means that it can be part of co-funding. I mean, we know that the grant is funded 70%.
Yeah, not only that, exactly. So you can use the equity even to cover the 30%, the other 30% that is not covered by the funding rate. Again, because of the rules, the research, the innovation actions, due to the laws of competition against, can only be supported with a 70%. The equity part would allow the companies also to cover the other 30%, because we know that many companies that are applying or thinking to apply are startups, are small companies, are pre-revenue, have also troubles to even find the other 30%. But in any case, what is important to bear in mind for everybody is that with the grant part and with or without the equity part, what we are looking for is for proposals that somehow can demonstrate that they have the resources to cover the market deployment. Since the TRL, wherever is the TRL, whatever is the TRL, starting TRL 6, 7, to the market deployment. So if you only go for the grant, that is an option, and the other option is the grant plus equity. If you only go for the grant, it's because you also have the other resources for the other TRLs, 9 and beyond, secure somehow, or you have managed to get that money and you only need the grant part. In any case, as Natasha said, if you had any doubt with expenses that you are really incurred for the development of the technology and the market deployment, give the Commission the consent to change, if you are asking for the grant, to change to the equity, to the blended option, because we can come up with a counter offer to try to really give you the better framework for your project to be a reality. So I think we will come to this point as many times as necessary, because we understand that sometimes it's not easy to understand. But I think this is one of the real novelties and changes in this accelerator pilot, and that we will help further the companies to make a reality the innovation. So picking up on the point where my colleague left the presentation, for those companies applying for the blended part, so they have gone through the grant evaluation, let's say after the interview with the jury, will go to the due diligence. I think I would like to make clear that the due diligence is not going to challenge the jury decision. It's not a reevaluation, it's not a reassessment. What the due diligence is trying to do is to confirm the investment amount and the structure of the company at the investment, to try to estimate the total financial effort, and to try to define the equity tranches, the number of equity tranches, and the milestones to be covered for the disbursement of these tranches. So the EIC fund that this morning was largely explained how it's going to look like, will carry out this due diligence. This due diligence will have a first part, like a pre-due diligence, that will be more aimed to ensure that there is no reputational risk for the Commission, there is no any kind of non-compliance situation that could be damaging for the Union interest. But then, what they will look is at a number of informations, basically the financial information that was provided by the company in the submission form. It could take a look also at the product, at the competition analysis, the target market, the IPRs, the management, and a number of points. In principle, the starting point will be the documentation provided by the company, by the applicant, but it is likely expectable that the EIC fund will ask for additional information in this process in close conversation with the applicant. Another part of the due diligence, or in parallel with the due diligence, will be the matchmaking co-investors to try to crowd in. Again, it was explained, the principle of that in the morning is very important for the Commission, and at the end is the final objective of this accelerator pilot is to attract the private investment to the company. We will have situations in which the Commission will have to be the sole investor, but since the very beginning, we will try to attract to the risk the project and attract and get on board other investors. So part of this, in parallel with the due diligence, there will be a platform where the applicants that the selected projects by the interview will be available for a community of trusted VCs and investors, and not only those, so this platform will be open for other investors, but basically will come from the intermediaries that we already are dealing with in the framework of Innofin or FC, as was mentioned this morning, and the company will be presented to these VCs to express their interest to invest. I'm going to anticipate one of the most repeated questions about the confidentiality and so on. So in principle, the information that will be there will be limited and only for those investors that are, on the other hand, the company is interested in. The company will allow to provide further information and to start with a real negotiation if this is the case. In any case, I would like to reassure everybody that the company will have the final say on the selection of these potential co-investors. So, as it was mentioned previously, the due diligence should start no later than 1 month after the jury decision, and could take at the most 6 months. Of course, we would like to reduce this time as much as possible, but we understand, on the other hand, that this may take some time because it implies some negotiations, some request of more information, conversations with the company, with the investors. So, well, the process, we would like not to take more than 6 months. The EIC fund, in principle, again, it was more or less described this morning, but I would like to add some hints. First, I would like to inform the audience that the investment guidelines of the EIC fund will be public. I think, very soon. So you will have the opportunity to know more about the investment strategy of the fund. In principle, or is the aim of the fund to go to those companies in pre-seed or earlier stage. It is the Commission, of course, who will evaluate and select, and that has been made clear in the previous slides, so you can see exactly all the evaluation process. The EIC fund will support the Commission and will manage the investment, but will be the Commission who will have the last say. In principle, the investment of the Commission will be in the range of 55% of the voting rights, but it's the aim of the Commission also to be silent investors in the sense of not interfering in the management and daily work of the company. The EIC fund will apply the most generally accepted methodologies in the VC market nowadays. But in any case, it will not be a usual venture capital in the sense that it is not the goal to obtain high returns on the investment, that are welcome, of course, but the aim is really to get an impact, to really fill the gap that was this morning explained. And the revenues, if any, will be recycled to support more companies. And this is applicable especially for the future Horizon Europe. So another point that I think is important for the blended part is that the grant and the equity are very intimately connected. So one can impact in the other. If we find troubles and something is not going well in one of the parts, can affect the other. So, well, it could be really strange that if we don't manage to really coordinate very well these two parts that are crucial in the project. The equity investment will be structured by a separate agreement. So, as it was said before, the grant agreement will be signed earlier, and then once the due diligence and all the negotiations has been covered, we will sign the investment agreement next to the grant agreement. As I said, the European Commission will be advised by experts, but retain the last say on the investment decision. There is a protocol, a governing protocol, and this is a board of directors for the EIC fund that will be composed by the Commission, who will have the last say. To clarify also, the EIB group will provide advisory services for the Commission in the preparation of all the dossier to carry out the due diligence, etc. The exit strategy may vary a lot depending on the situation. As it is written in the slide, ideally we would like the company to reach growth and maturity, attract investors, and the Commission opt out as soon as possible. But of course, we are dealing with very risky projects, so we have to be realistic that many of these projects may fail. In any case, for any of these situations, there will be usual solutions and exits running from IPOs to trade sales, management buyouts, redemption rights, secondary sales, and liquidations, of course. The time that the Commission will stay in the company is in principle open, depending on the situation, because another thing that I would like to stress at that point is that the EIC in general wants to tackle this problem of the funding of companies in a tailor-made approach. So there are many things that will be managed in a case-by-case basis. But on average, I would say that we expect to be in the companies taking into account that we are, in many occasions, we will deal with deep tech, so it takes very long innovation cycle, between 7-10 years, could be more and also could be less, but on average, and this is a pilot, so we will try to clarify many of these aspects in the future, this is our initial expectation. Well, coming back to the point of not everything is money, business acceleration services are another key component of the EIC. It was already mentioned that will be not only for SMEs, but also for beneficiaries of the EIC, Pathfinder, and also Accelerator, including, as the SME instrument phase 2 is including now, coaching. I would like also to stress the point that business acceleration services can also be offered to those natural persons that are thinking in creating a company, especially when they are involved in a transition to innovation activities or to a launch pad. So these kind of spin-offs that may come out from a FED project would be excellent targets for this kind of support as well. The services, the additional services provided by the BSA are also the community platform, where we want to put together all the beneficiaries to try to find synergies, a possibility also to find customers or providers. And the networking events like the corporate days. That is a great opportunity to pitch in front of big corporates seeking for some kind of venture corporate investment, for example, or just to gain a client or a provider as well. So next cutoff is 9th October. Is the first cutoff where the blended finance will be available, and this is one of the reasons why we are today in July with this very warm weather in front of you to inform and to encourage you to apply for this for the next cutoff under this pilot, and also you will have another additional 4 cutoffs. Quick mention to FTI. It's a smaller program, but for those that still would like to have some kind of consortium-driven project in the same branch of TRL, similar from TRL 5, 6 to 8, FTI is a very good option. It's very much focused on the participation of the industry, but academia and RTOs can also be partners. Projects normally are from 3 to 5. 5 is the limit, the maximum consortium. And the average or the maximum budget could be up to 3 million euros. So next cutoff is in 22nd October. And finally, the prices. Well, it was mentioned during the morning as well that the EIC is mainly bottom-up, but there are some kind of initiatives that are more top-down to try to tackle those challenges that our society is facing. And these are particular prices in the sense that are inducement prices, so are prices that are to try to foster a solution to a very particular challenge. So, in principle, these kind of difficult societal or technological challenges are the topics that you will see reflected in the next slide, is to try to accelerate the development of these effective solutions and to try to apply with a solution out of the box. Are very open in the sense of participation across different sectors and disciplines, innovators, startups, and scale-ups. So, well, as the presentation will be available for all of you, I don't spend a lot of time in this part, just for you to know again that deadlines, as Martin said, are approaching. The value of the budget of the prices is high, it's interesting. So take a look and please consider applying. So you have here a number of links. APRE in Italy, but NCPs, EEN are more than happy to help you to provide more information. You will have a lot of information on the website. There is a very long list of FAQs. Most of the information that I have provided and more are there. So feel free, of course, to revisit these websites and to, well, call Antonio and his colleagues to get more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. First of all, last time on menti.com for you, your favorite platform maybe. And now we are able to, select the short list of questions for the accelerator and the equity part, the blended finance of the accelerator. Of course, we will not able today to raise all the questions. So what we propose to the Commission, of course, now is to reply to a couple of 2-3 questions each for each presentation. But if I'm not wrong, last week Commission also published an FAQ, frequently asked questions documents on EIC. If I'm not wrong, it's a living document, so it can be integrated. It's a learning by doing process. So what we propose is if we receive additional questions and we are not able to reply, not yet, of course, we can forward to you and maybe they can feed this document, this FAQ. So go ahead in selecting, please go ahead in selecting those questions for the equity, for the accelerator. In a while, we will go back to Martin, and Martin, I will raise you the top 3 questions on Pathfinder. Yes, maybe we can start with Pathfinder. We have around 10-15 minutes for answers, so I will kindly ask you to be, you have more or less 5 minutes to reply to the 2 or 3 questions that will concern your presentation. So let's move to Pathfinder from the control room. Okay. I hope your view is perfect enough. By the way, I will read the question. Let's start from the 26, the first one on the left. Hello? No, here it's important. Okay, thanks. It's fine. What is the target audience for Pathfinder? What kind of entities are eligible for the EIC Pathfinder pilots? I think we have to make a difference between the several Pathfinder schemes. Please, Martin.
Yes, very good. This is indeed a question that I have not addressed during my presentation. The EIC Pathfinder is open to all kind of legal entities, which is a very important element. There are, however, some kind of entities that are also more represented so far than others. So let's go through the list, starting with FED Open. In FED Open, we have in the past seen that approximately half of the participants in the consortia are actually universities, so they come from higher education institutions. About a quarter are typically research organizations, and the rest is more or less either industry and SMEs, with a strong part of and focus on the SMEs. Okay. In fact, we very much encourage the participation of new actors in generally in FED and in the EIC Pathfinder, meaning that this is actually part of the impact evaluation. So when you have new players, and that one of the examples for such new players are new type of high-tech SMEs that are participating in FED, it will be evaluated more positively under the impact criterion. And this also means, and I've given these numbers before, that actually there's a large participation generally of industry and SMEs in consortia. We have, I think, 85% of all FED Open projects, including either industry or SME, and 70% of all FED Open projects, including an SME. I think when we come to the next scheme, to the FED Proactive, the answer is very similar. I think that here we also see that the focus is still very much on the development, the work, the research work, which means that most of the participants are also universities and research organizations. However, the shift comes when we talk about the innovation launchpad and the transition to innovation activities. Especially for the innovation launchpad, we have seen that there's a much more and higher participation of spin-offs, of also SMEs. Nevertheless, still also there are some universities that are legal entities that are participating. However, these are very often people who have as a long-term goal or short-term goal, this depends, the setup of their own company. Yeah? And then finally, the transition to innovation activities, if I may there we don't have any experience from the past, but we also expect that actually we have a higher participation of industry and SMEs in those kind of transition activities.
Thank you. One more question for you. It's on the other side of the slide. It's about the business acceleration services provided by the Enterprise Europe Network, plus coaching, plus other services. And, the most of us think at those business acceleration services for the beneficiaries of the SME instrument and next EIC accelerator, but we are wrong, because now, since the last 2 years, if I well remember, also SMEs under FET projects can benefit of those services, correct?
Absolutely. This is indeed something that has changed since the launch of the EIC pilot beginning of 2018. So here we are able to support SMEs as well from the FET Open and FET Proactive, FET Open scheme. This was still the beginning, but and here, thanks to Louis' earlier presentation, we have actually learned that with the last update of the EIC work program, we have even gone a step further.
Okay.
So, meaning that when we talk about everything that is available under the business acceleration services except the coaching, now I'm excluding the coaching, but all the rest is available for all EIC beneficiaries, which include all beneficiaries from FET Open and FET Proactive, plus obviously the part from the SME instrument, the accelerator. And on top of that, now I'm talking about the coaching. The coaching, you know, that certain beneficiaries in the past in the SME instrument had the possibility to get 12 days of really very intensive service from a dedicated business coach that has been selected for them, for their benefits, to help them screening their companies in general. And now this has also changed, so it is not only the SMEs that we have in our scheme that are eligible, but also the researchers who have the attention to set up their own company. So whenever this, and here we're typically thinking about beneficiaries, for example, under the Innovation Launchpad that I mentioned earlier, who want to create their own company later, maybe also in these transition activities, they will also be able to benefit from this coaching in the future.
Thank you, Martin. Last flash for you. FET Open, FET Proactive within the Pathfinder and also transition to innovation activities are research and innovation action. No, it's a new question you cannot find. I mean, no, you can find, but it's my introduction. This one, are research and innovation actions. It's the same standard template for RIA, or it's another one for those instruments? I'm talking about the application form.
When we talk about the application form, it is not the standard Horizon 2020 research and innovation action template. And the reason is we have some specific set of evaluation criteria, and we have structured the proposal template around these evaluation criteria that are different than the rest of Horizon 2020. So please have a look for each topic and each call where you go, where you have to download the specific template. You cannot just submit from other programs.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move to the accelerator and the grant part. The accelerator application form changed compared to the SME instrument. Let's see, Natasha. So the first one, it's not easy, definition of high-risk innovation, but just to better understand, Jean-David tried this morning to provide us more details about this. It's a learning by doing, but what do you mean for risk, technological, imitation, commercial, financial? What do you think? Just to give some flash. And then, of course, we'll see also the learning by doing, the funded projects, of course, which is the best evidence.
I think that I can reply saying that the risk is a component of the accelerator. So it's high-risk companies, high risk in any ways. I was explaining concerning the the evaluation criteria. Risk goes across the three criteria. So we can intend risk as a technological risk, of course, because it's a breakthrough innovation. It's something that is a challenge to the market. So it's interesting because it will shape probably new markets. markets. We will probably redefine existing ones. So we don't know if the challenge will be welcomed by the market. So this is the technological risk. But of course, we have also the financial risk, which is extremely important because the accelerator aims at funding, especially, and to find these companies that are not bankable, especially with the equity part. So the companies that are so risky that no private and not public financial institute will take on board the risk. So the idea of the EIC fund is really to de-risk the company, to give a sign that the commissioner will take on board the risk and maybe to attract other investors that they will feel more comfortable.
So this is the target basically because somebody now the new template asks for more information, more insights about the financial state of affairs of the company, about the ownership, the annual balance sheet, and so on. You don't have a specific target of company in terms of, I don't know, dimension, maturity. You talk, generally speaking, about innovators, correct? I mean, because this is a very common question about the target. We have two options, grants only and blended finance now. I don't know if you can imagine some different targets between the two options, or grants only, or for the equity, maybe a more structured or mature company is not so, and we will ask maybe later in the success cases session. I'm not sure that a mature company is so interesting to the equity part and to the blended finance. So that's, I think, this is the concept behind this question, the target. I don't know if you have in mind 2, 3 targets also compared to your experience under SME instrument.
As far as I understood from the philosophy of the accelerator, a company that has already secured financial investment, that has already is considered for us as a bankable one. So probably the accelerator is not the right option for the company. Will be probably redirected to other funds.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure Luis will.
Yeah,
we'll add something later also on this point, bankability and so on. Very last question for you, Natasha, still on the new application form of the accelerator. It seems that the go-to-market plan, the go-to-market strategy and the financial resources, financial plan is even more important now. I mean, a clear plan that can change, of course, in the course of the project, but the company should assure a credible path towards the market uptake and the market deployment through the equity of the SPV, of the ECF fund, or through other alternatives. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So in the application form, actually, yes, the companies, no matter if they're going just for equity, for a grant part or for a grant plus equity, they have to provide a go-to-market plan, which is very important because if you are going only for grant, as I already explained in my presentation, it's true that you have to provide evidence that if you do not need equity, you are able to find this extra investment, extra financial support that you need to the market deployment. Okay. Of course, for the other companies, they have to demonstrate that they don't have the support, and the equity will be particularly important. So the plan is extremely important for the evaluators to understand this. But of course, it will be discussed also during the interviews because there will be specific questions related to this part. There will be much more focus on the future plans, financial plan of the company.
Very last quick question about the ranking. There will be 1 or 2 ranking, one for grant only and one for blended finance, on and unique one.
There will be only one
unique one.
List.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So last short list of a top list of questions, Luis. You have 1 hour now to reply to all the questions about equity and blended finance. No, less, 5 minutes. It's coming. In the meantime, I don't know, Luis, if you if you wanna build on what Natasha said about, let's say, bankability.
Yeah, on bankability, I could add a little bit that, well, it's about not being able to secure sufficient funding. So a company, and I think it was one of the proposed questions, a company that has already an investor on board could be also eligible, could be not bankable if the capacity of that investor is not enough to cover the funding needed to the growth and the scale up of the companies. and this may happen many times. On the other hand, for the Commission, it's not bad to have an investor on board since the beginning, because in many occasions, this kind of VCs are very well experienced. They can provide the mentoring, and they can be the lead in the company, and the Commission can invest together with this initial investor. Of course, as I explained before, we will try to attract other investors or to try, if there is no investor, new investors to the company. But bankability is not necessarily not to have any investment, previous investment, but not enough for what we are going to try to address again, that is the deployment of the technology and the scale-up of the company.
Okay, thank you, Luis. Let's focus on the deployment activities. The second most voted question, 39. We know that through the equity, let's say, activities above TRL 8 can be, let's say, eligible. So it's the market, no? Market uptake, market deployment. One of the most common questions we are receiving is, are you going to list, not in an exhaustive way, but are you going to provide some examples of such a kind of activities? So above TRL 8, when we talk about market uptake, market deployment, what do we mean? Internationalization, open another company or another branch abroad?
Okay, so in fact, I started my presentation trying to clarify this, so I suppose that it needs more, because most of the people still don't see very clear what is the answer for this. So for the equity, the concept of eligible expenses change. In fact, doesn't make sense at all. Talking about eligibility, because the equity can be applied to any kind of activity of the company. Of course, what the company should do is to come up with a comprehensive and really rational plan to scale up and to get to the market again. So it's not about what kind of activities we don't want to be prescriptive in the kind of activities that the company has to carry out to really deploy the technology and the innovation and scale up. It's the company who will have to propose the activities in a very compelling and rational way on how to do it. And again, in one way or another, the company will have to secure, either with the support of the Commission through the equity, or either with the support of their own investors, to try to cover these activities that are TRL 9 and beyond. TRL 9 is well defined in the classification you saw this morning, and is the technology are activities to demonstrate that the technology is operational, is working in the operational context, in the real world. So it has to be all related to try to confirm that the company really, that the technology really is producing and achieving the targets that are supposed it has to achieve in terms of yield, efficiency, and production, levels of production, and so those kind of activities for TRL 9. For the rest, you mentioned some activities that could be, why not, part of the equity applicability.
Luis, when a very negative due diligence assessment will affect the grant project in a very negative way, I mean, under which condition a grant might be closed following a very negative due diligence assessment. In case of fraud, of course, what else?
Well, this is another question that is very recurrent, and I think scare people to apply for the blended or may generate some kind of concerns. First, I have to say that we don't expect this situation happening very frequently. So it will be some kind of exceptional. Second, it will be, of course, you mentioned fraud. Well, obviously, if we discover a fraud that by any means, it may happen during the due diligence, but what if by other means we discover that the company is in fraud 3 months later? In any case, fraud, misrepresentation, non-compliance, these kind of things are obviously can trigger the termination of the grant agreement and the recovery of the funds that could be already spent by the company. But in this really extreme, as we, I think, and I think it's totally understandable that the Commission or any administration, if discover that a beneficiary is doing some kind of fraud with public funds, will terminate the project. It's the same situation. The other situation that could be more realistic, or on the other hand, more subject to some kind of concerns, if the, for example, the outcome of the due diligence is that the risk is low, for example, or in those cases, in any case, well, it's not necessarily the grant part should be terminated, and in any case, if the Commission and the project turns out that is bankable, for example, is the applicant who should demonstrate that they can secure the other funding to cover all the activities to continue with the grant. So very negative due diligence, to sum up, in those very concrete cases: fraud, misrepresentation, non-compliance.
Okay. You can respond now also with a yes or no. Will the EIC fund have a seat in the company's board, in the invested company? Yes or not?
Yes, but yeah, of course, yes or no is because, again, as I said before, this is a case by case.
Okay.
And it's very tailor-made. The Commission, as I said, doesn't want to interfere in the daily life of the company and in the management. So if the Commission is going to be in the board, will be as an observer, first point. Second, as I said, I think in my presentation, but I think it's a good opportunity to repeat that the Commission will go normally, usually for preferred rights. So it's a kind of not very limited voting rights over the company decisions. So the Commission will be an observer, will be a silent investor in the sense that will not interfere, but on the other hand, will be active upon request of the founders. So if the founders want the Commission to be more active, and in any case will be active, always trying to attract other investors. So I think this is the...
Okay.
And just to finish, the Commission will provide mentoring. If the Commission is the sole investors, there is no other investor providing the mentoring, will be the Commission. So I think this is another important role for the Commission when it's this kind of silent investor.
Okay. I think that's it for the time being, but I think we will see again.
Okay. We had an hour.
You can find out more details, more answers to your question under the FAQ document. You can find this document under the EIC website, the APRE website. We will provide this material in our website, so all the information material of this event on our website. I thank you very much, and a big applause to the Commission officers, because you really clarified a lot about Pathfinder and Accelerator. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Now, there is one session more, and it's very interesting because you can learn from real success cases. So far, we talk about let's say, documents, rules, but now we have the opportunity to hear from the direct research, the direct success cases, their experience, and also from the colleagues of APRE, practical tips on how about the key success factor for your proposal under the Pathfinder and the Accelerator. I invite to join the stage the success cases. So Antonella Bongiovanni from Research Council of Italy, Paolo Matteazzi from MBN Materialia, sorry, and Anna from Monozucuri, Anna Fontanelli. Thank you very much. Sedetevi dove preferite. Before leaving the floor to the success cases, I would invite my colleague Marta Calderalo to break the ice for this last session. Marta, you are so experienced when we talk about FET and FET projects, so I'm sure in the next 7 minutes you will be able to share a lot of practical tips and details on how to prepare FET projects and Pathfinder projects. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Antonio. We have discussed a bit regarding the European Innovation Council Pathfinder and the accelerator. The European Innovation Council Pathfinder pilot is based mainly on the experiences of future and emerging technology programs. So we can just try to identify some keywords, some insights from this experience. And my really little presentation is just 2 slides. My really little presentation is regarding this. If we think about what Mr. Lange was presenting today, we can think about 3 different concepts in the Pathfinder. The first one is related to people, so the communities. The second one to ideas, so the paradigms. And the third one to the markets, so the innovation ecosystem. So if we have to identify the different concepts behind the next call for proposal, we have to think that within the people and within the connection of the research and innovation community, your proposal has to identify an interdisciplinary community which bring academia and industry together to think about breakthrough ideas that change in a way the paradigms of the technology, the emerging technology, so our idea that raised in our project, and also that could change not only the market and the society, but also the impact on careers on the different people that are engaged in the project. So we have to think about career in terms of the research teams, careers in terms of the high-tech SME that is involved in your project, or the different high-tech SMEs that are involved in your project, but also the young researchers and the novel participants in those projects that are participating in. So our experience is mainly identifying those different concepts in the 3 different criteria, evaluation criteria. If we have to think about the excellence, we have to really detail the breakthrough aspects of our technology, so why our technology will succeed in a long-term vision. So we have to think about really 15 years, 20 years from now, okay? How this multidisciplinarity is embraced in our proposal, so how the different communities and the academia and the private sector are going to interact between each other, as well as the novelty. Those are, I would say, research-driven innovation projects. So the novelty is completely, mainly the first point, I would say, regarding the Pathfinder projects. Related to the impact, of course, I was telling to you the exceptional, the importance of the market. So, of course, we have to think about the exploitation plans of our proposal, okay? So we have to start to identify who we are going to contact, with whom we would like to exploit our technology, if there are any possible markets that we would like to engage with, as well as, I was telling to you, the career opportunities within the different members of the project. And the implementation. This is actually something that it's really relevant for those projects, and this is an aspect that where all the different projects are failing a bit. the methodology. If you think about the methodology, we are thinking about high-risk research. So please keep in mind also in the section related to implementation that your project needs an agile structure, a risky-friendly management and implementation, in order to really be connecting within the different milestones of your projects, and therefore try to, in a way, find the plan A, B, C, D, and E, if we can think. Just few words on the different coordination and support actions that are related to the future and emerging technologies and the Pathfinder, because you can find some relevant sources. So, for example, for PREFET, the PREFET coordination and support action is supporting the different community in the identification of the emerging trends in research and innovation, and is giving also some support via workshops and events to proposers. The FAT-FX coordination and support action is related to the communication about the program and the projects, so you can check the different stories, but also the different catalog of the projects that are funded under the previous FET Open and FET Proactive projects, as well as identify the different high-tech SMEs and different technologies that were supported by the FET Open and Proactive. And the FET briefing is supporting more the transition to innovation activities, the FET Innovation Launchpad activities, the related one, in order to foster the exploitation of the different projects that were funded under FET. So I finalized my presentation, and it's my pleasure to present Antonella Bongiovanni. Oh, I'm sorry, I just forgot a slide for the Future Tech Week. I'm so sorry. The Future Tech Week is an incredible week, which is going to be held during the Research and Innovation Days, where we actually are asking, the European Commission is asking to check and to publish, to disseminate all the different results from the FET projects that are already funded. And it's taking place between the 23rd and the 29th of September this year. So, I'm sorry, Antonella. I was just thinking a bit about this. Okay, it's my pleasure to present Antonella Bongiovanni. Antonella Bongiovanni is a concrete example of what we can think about excellence in science. Antonella is coming from the National Research Center, in particular from the Institute of Biomedicine and Molecular Immunology. And it's going to present the Best for Us project, a project that was funded, I think, last September. Yes, okay, I was thinking about last year, I don't remember. And presenting how this different proposal was winning really in the first high ranks of the ranking list, and how the different impacts of the project are going to support her and the different emerging area. Please.
Thank you, Marta.
Okay. So hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Marta. So today I'm going to share with you some features of this project, this FET Open project that we named Best for Us, extracellular vesicles from a natural source for tailor-made material. So in a click, the project was funded it started last September, and it will be for 3 years, and includes 6 different partners from 6 independent research and technological institutes across Europe. So the main theme of our project are indeed the extracellular vesicle. What are these guys? So these are nano-sized particles that are released from cells and are a real communication system, since this extracellular vesicle carry inside all the information that is necessary to let cells to communicate each other, and the information for cells are molecules, so they have inside and also outside their membrane, they have different kind of molecules that can be uptaken by other cells that will eventually respond to these messages. Now is known also that this system, this communicating system, is very well conserved along the evolution, and indeed we can find this system also in bacteria and other species. Actually, the first person that who discovered and hypothesized the existence of this system was 150 years ago Darwin, that in his pangenesis theory was imagine that eventually in whatever kind of organism there are teeny particles that will travel along the body and eventually will bring all the information. Okay, I go a little bit fast. So actually the main limitation of the theory of Darwin, that was completely visionary and a genial theory, was the technology. Since 150 years ago he was absolutely not able to see them. Now we are a little bit far from that period, and then thanks to technology we end up to recognize the reality of this theory, and indeed the extracellular vesicle exists, and they have some features that are really peculiar in biology. This field is quite new, since I think that the main insights on the extracellular vesicle come in the recent 5-7 years, and what is known now is that these particles, these nano-sized particles, are very well tolerated in the body, have long circulating half-life, they are able to be internalized by other cells, and as I say, they are able to carry more molecules as cargos. And also they are also able to cross tissues and also cellular barriers like the blood-brain barriers. Because of these features, they appear to be very appealing under the socioeconomic value, since we can envisage a potential extracellular application in the sector of biotechnology or pharmaceutics or cosmetics, because they can be applied both as a diagnostic or therapeutic tool. So we were talking this morning about liquid biopsies, and indeed the extracellular vesicle are present in whatever kind of biological fluids, and they are a mean to enrich for biomarker, and indeed they are very good candidate to be applied in the liquid biopsies. But today I'm not going to talk about extracellular vesicle as diagnostic, but as a potential therapeutic mean. Indeed, there are just a couple of clinical trials that started on testing on human the possibility to use mammalian cell-derived extracellular vesicle as a cell-free therapy, so to be applied indeed in human to deliver drugs to treat specific pathologies. Because of all these features and potential, the interest about the extracellular vesicle was rising in the recent years. So there were an exponential growth of either a number of scientific papers or on the number of patents, either US or European or Eastern country patent, as well as grants, as funded grants. So I think that US started first, I think 4 years ago, and now also the European Commission was able also to recognize the importance of this field. So our project was starting from some gap that was still existing on the possible application of extracellular vesicle at the industrial scale. Since till now, for the use of extracellular vesicle as a therapeutic, there are still few raw materials to derive these natural nano devices, and also the technology to extract the extracellular vesicle is still far from the application at the industrial scale. And until now, also the quality of these batches of nano devices, natural nano devices, and the cost is not yet compatible for the application in industry. Then the VES for us main aim is indeed to develop a new platform for the efficient production and functionalization of extracellular vesicles that we are deriving from a totally renewable natural source. And this approach will enable us, will enable for their exploitation as tailor-made products in the field of nanomedicine, cosmetics, and nutraceutics. So we expect some results that we think, we believe that we are going to achieve. So we expect to set up a new technology for the high throughput isolation of this natural source-derived extracellular vesicle, to have a definite extracellular vesicle for the application as tailor-made natural nano device, having then a new European perspective on frontier and natural biotechnology. And then also we are working also for training and career development in high quality knowledge-based biotechnology. I think that the strength of our project is the solution that we propose, that is indeed the material from where we are going to, we are deriving the extracellular vesicle, that, as I said, is natural, is totally renewable, and its production and growth is very cheap, and is also possible having a scaling up for the industrial scale production. And to be a little bit more concrete, so we are thinking to have to achieve a production of 100 times larger batches of extracellular vesicle comparing what is known till now, to have a reduction of 10 times of the production cost, and to increase also the quality in terms of purity for an easy application, a possible application for human health. And having then application of our products in different sectors, from biomedicine, nutraceutics, and cosmetics. Indeed, the system, our product, is completely is possible to handle our product in terms of the final destination that we can can think about. Indeed, we can load our extracellular vesicle with drugs, for instance, or with a fragment of gene to have a gene therapy at the end, or eventually with micronutrients, or eventually other molecules that can be targeted to specific tissue or organs. Why we choose FET Open? I hope that because of the presentation of our project is kind of clear the reason why. 1 year and a half, we started with an idea, and this idea around this idea, we build up a consortia, so people that could work on that idea, giving their expertise. And then we were looking for funding, so for something that will allow us to work on our idea. And FET Open was perfect, since this funding scheme is indeed for breakthrough technologies, as we think we have, and is absolutely high risk as the Best for Us project. And also our TRL was not that high, so we had the proof of concept, and we are going to end up with the TRL 4, or we hope also 5 at the end of the project. Furthermore, so the FET Open was, I think that also because of this overlapping of interest and of vision between our consortia and the FET Open, we succeeded immediately just when we presented this idea. And now is since September that we are working very hard, and we are trying also to taking advantage of some specific supporting funding that FET Open offer to the FET Open projects. So because of the importance of the impact on society that FET Open, of the interest of FET Open in having impact on society, we succeeded in funding the first Italian Society on Extracellular Vesicles, and so the first that we named the Vita. And the first symposia is going to be in Palermo, indeed, so in the institute from where I come from. And actually, we are kind of proud of this part of the story, because almost all people working on this natural nanotechnology is going to bring together in Palermo discussing about science. And also we were having access also to these supporting projects that are helping us to maximize the impact of our results. So either we are included either in FET-FEX or in the FET-Urine or in this other IP booster that is fostering or helping us with the IPR issue. Furthermore, another, I think, very good success in this short period is being able to constitute a clustering of 5 different FET Open projects that are actually running, and all of the 5 of us have the same team that are extracellular vesicle indeed. So there are one that was started a couple of years ago, 2 of us that started last September, and other 2 that they are just funded. And again, the 5 of us are very happy to collaborate and to work together for the next strategic scientific programming that eventually will have this team as a main focus. And again, all the 5 consortia we are going to meet in November, and so we think that this is going to be a very good chance to work together. But this is the last slide, and I obviously enough need to introduce this fantastic team. Actually, I want to just mention that we didn't know each other, almost none of us, so there was just a way to for me to look at the specific and good expertise that could help me in raising and working on this idea. And we are 25 persons having different knowledge, so from cell biology to biophysics, chemist, to business and communication. And we are from 6 independent research and technology institute. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Antonella, thank you very much for this presentation, and congratulations for the quality of your ideas, research, for the excellence of this research. What we understand is that, okay, it's a FET Open. You started with new partners, so this is also good because as we tell always, the Horizon 2020 and now the EIC are also a way to increase the network of reference, to know other excellent potential partners, and so on. And I had a look to your consortium, and it's quite, I would say, interdisciplinary. I mean, there are some partners like Zabala, for instance, or others. They are not specifically focused on the, let's say, research issues, but I guess they somehow help, so they are already in the consortium, those actors that can help you to go ahead and also to better address and explore a potential exploitation of your research, of your basic research. Could you tell us something more about, especially the exploitation actions you are carrying out? Oops.
So at the beginning, so when we were presenting the proposal, we decided that we were expecting to enjoy science, so we decided to have an advisory board that was an industrial advisory board that would advise eventually for the exploitation, but we decided not to have as a partner.
So external board.
As an external board, but we push a lot Zabala, which is a consultant, a consulting company that is covering all the part of the IPR, exploitation, communication, to be our partner, because we believed that, and we thought that eventually, since we are researchers and we are not that good at, the part of concerning
it's not your job, I mean.
is not our job. So the part that was concerning communication and exploitation, we needed some help. And so we, with this other, and that is the 6th partner, that is Zabala, we think that we are kind of complete in covering the vision of the FET Open.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Zabala, I think, is from Spain. Our competitors from Spain everywhere, but of course, it makes sense. I mean, to also in a basic research project to at least include other expertise that will help us, will help researchers in better exploring potential and future opportunities and better understand which application. We have 3 lines of applications, potential lines of application are the most convincing. Thank you very much, Antonella. Congratulations again. Now, I would invite Mr. Matteazzi to join the podium. Thanks to our colleagues, we are very proud to have all of you on the stage, including Mr. Matteazzi, because this is a particular case of an Italian company which managed to be involved in several different EU projects like FET Open, Launchpad, and SME Instrument, and you managed to let's say, work on different ideas, technologies, and potential product development thanks to the European project. So, Mr. Materazzi, please tell us something more about how did you exploit the EU Research and Innovation Funding Program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you also from my side for the invitation to present our experience. And first of all, let me introduce what our company does. We are involved in powder production for different environments, mainly for industry, and basically for research and innovation also. We are not a startup. We founded a company in 1994. We are actually producing a substantial quantity of nanomaterials, about 100 tons per year, for different more or less mature markets, like material for powder metallurgy, for thermal spraying, for 3D printing, laser deposition, for example. Our, let's call advanced material, nano-based materials are produced with a proprietary mechanical alloying process that is briefly introduced in this slide. That is a solid-state process delivering engineered powders, relatively large-sized powders in the micron range, but it includes structures that are in the nanoscale range with all possible features in terms of properties, improved properties in terms, for example, of mechanical properties, in general, engineered properties. And our daily business is try to transfer these advanced materials into advanced products, having a market, having possibility to get value from the material itself. The main markets and activities in which we are involved are materials for abrasive tools, therefore powders for tools that are manufactured by our customers, materials and powders for high temperature components, ODS alloys, for example, again, manufactured by our downstream manufacturing chains, materials for biomedical device and prosthesis, for example, titanium-based mainly, and again, materials for additive manufacturing. Our challenge and vision and again, daily business is to try to transfer materials into, use materials in the value chain that can reach the final market from our point of view. We are, of course, at the beginning of the value chain, and our downstream value chains, depending on the sector, in this case, material for powder metallurgy, is dealing with different manufacturing activities that are not in-house, usually manufacturing facilities, for example, for these stone cutting tools and so on. And we realized in the past very quickly that we have a gap in developing and transferring these advanced materials into final products, that is, having the ability to go to solid that need to be co-developed in this gap with the powder design, and the collaboration with, that we use extensively with RTO or the customer itself is not enough to fully support the development, have success case in terms of marketing the final product. And we discovered quickly that we need integration in the value chain in this gap that is identified there, in trying to make a real industrial prototyping that we're able to offer to the downstream value chain capabilities to understand the properties of materials, and including inside the property the possible cost, and enabling in green underlined there a quicker development based on customer needs. So at the end, for the case of powder metallurgy, for example, for stone cutting tools and also the other examples, we were able to deliver customized performance, and we are still doing that, meet cost targets and of course, environmental safety constraints. So altogether, as you see, it is going up and down in the value chain. These development activities is continuing, is activated, it is flowing up and down through the value chain, refining products, adapting to the customer requests and so on. But the filling of this gap was quite essential and critical. This is just to mention other materials product success case that we have in our portfolio of materials developed. So let's come to our experience in how we used EU funding in, I would say, improve our ability to assess downstream markets. As I was mentioning, we are involved in different main areas: material for powder metallurgy, materials for coatings, materials for additive manufacturing, where the four is staying for downstream value chains. It was mentioned, for example, material for powder metallurgy. We have been, in this case, involved, called by relations that we had with university, RTO, environment, to participate in a project. It's a visionary project regarding materials in powder metallurgy that I will tell you something more. TRL that are very, very low from our point of view, that is TRL between 2 and 3. And on the other hand, we have been also proposing by ourselves a SME instrument that we call the Project Boost, that was going from TRL 7 to something more than 8. That was for material for coatings. Concerning the FET Open proposal and process that is currently going, again, we were involved as an SME in a proposal to allow research partners, research organizations to pursue a particular idea that was to develop materials that were quite visionary materials, not existing in systems that were not possible to be manufactured in other ways, and we had the capability to do that. And some materials that are quite strange, looking for stability of the nanostructure, combining very different titanium, magnesium, for example, tungsten, aluminum. So as was mentioned much better in the previous presentations, this process, low TRL, is not directly related to industrial needs or to deliver a final product, but it's just has great potential of seeding new value chains and products. In one word, let's say, in a paradigm of the program, future emerging materials, and how to be explored to see if we find some property that may be, why not, interesting for marketing. Then let's come to our experience. This instrument phase 2, that is a project is dealing with one of these markets that we are trying to enter. It is the market for powders for coatings. Here, the proposal was to accelerate our capability, so boosting our capability to introduce these new materials in the market of coatings. Again, recalling the schemes that I was proposing before this project, we had a lot of activities trying to propose these new materials to the market of coatings, using also research innovation actions, European projects, internal projects, small industrial projects. But still, we had very high difficulty in filling these gaps that I was mentioning before of validating the powders in the coating process and support the commercialization of the powders with the process recipes. So again, we were not able at the end, also maybe laboratory trials and so on, they were quite interesting, quite positive, but we were not able to convince customers so on to go on with completing the value chain. This is what we propose in the Boost project, so using this instrument of the instrument 2, that is to accelerate our capability to assess this market by filling this gap, by including our facility also prototyping capabilities, let's say sort of completion of the industrial pilot production line, if we want, starting from the powder production, thermospray plant, and then going to propose to the market real materials, samples, cases complete with performances and costs and so on. This is allowing us to enter in this market. I will tell you more now. And for example, in this important market like sputtering targets, for example, for treating glass surfaces for optical properties. So where we were before Boost, we were before our project. We had many different materials, menu in our capabilities, also with preliminary laboratory trials, but limited to few collaboration with RTO. Small production volumes in the size of 2 tons per year. Now, during the boost, we are already addressing, of course, material for particular markets. We saw already fast validation demonstration in material for coatings, and we are already increased our production capacity now in the range of 30 tons per year in terms of capacity, and in terms of use of materials in the range of 8 tons on 4 different market applications, among which I mentioned already the sputtering targets. And of course, we are also see the challenge in this moment also to provide shop services with our materials. And just to mention also the fact that during the project we have been enjoying, maybe it was one of the questions, I think, expected coaching activities. We have been the assistance of a coach that was co-selected with the commission that is helping us in improving our business plan and helping also the city of new market opportunities. That is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I have a couple of quick questions for you. I don't know if the answer might be so quick, by the way. In terms of commercialization goals, what are your objectives in the next, 1 year time in terms of geographical market, in terms of target markets, and so on?
Yeah, as I was mentioning, we are already providing to some companies that is downstream in this value chain materials for sputtering targets for glass surfaces and materials for wear-resistant applications in different markets. In this moment, our customers are located in Europe, mainly in Belgium, Germany, Italy. So I think this opportunity of this project gave us the possibility to really assess this market in terms of prototyping the final components, and so giving a value to the powders and everything.
Thank you very much. Another question came to my mind during the previous session. You applied and got funded in the last cutoff of 17 of the SME instrument, the last cutoff of 2017 of the SME instrument. It means 2 SME instruments ago, because in the meantime, we had the transition towards the EIC pilot in 18, where Anna applied with the introduction of the interview, for instance. And then from next cutoff, next October, we will have the transition from the EIC first pilot to the EIC enhanced pilot. As an instrument will be called EIC accelerator with all the novelties we learned today. If with your company you should apply today, would you be interested in the blended finance, the equity part, or you would still be mainly interested in the grant, so grant-only option? Because you are not a startup, you start with this.
Equity could be interesting, of course, because we are dealing with something that is close to 8, 9 in terms of TRL. What I can say, frankly speaking, is the equity scheme is not clear for me, and I don't understand really the equity. From my comprehension is something that is entering the share of the company, and in any case, it will be not so big I would say input of financial resources. In any case, the capital of this company is even mine or others. In this case, will be in the size of 1 million, 2 million euros. So it will be really, I think it could be more interesting for my comprehension again, the scheme of the InnoFin, that is loans for production upscale and establishing new manufacturing activities following, for example, this kind of projects.
Okay, thank you. So other opportunities within the frame of the Horizon 2020 and the EIC. And this is, for instance, this is for sure also a message for us that we transfer to the Commission, make even more visible and clear the range of the opportunities available, which is huge actually. And then, of course, the equity part of the new EIC accelerator will be more clarified, maybe also after the first cutoffs. It's a learning by doing process, as we already told several times today. Thank you, Paolo. Before leaving the floor to Anna, I would invite my colleague Valentina on the podium, Valentina Fioroni from APRE, because we entered the second transition of the SME instrument within the Horizon 2020 time frame. So now there is a transition from SME instrument EIC pilot to the EIC enhanced pilot and the EIC accelerator. Valentina, in a nutshell, could you please summarize what is changing again in this transition from SME instrument and the EIC accelerator?
Yes, thank you, Antonio. I would like to summarize some changes from the transition to from the SME instrument to the EIC accelerator. Basically, cut-off date of 5 of September 2019 will be last opportunity to submit a proposal for phase 1 of the SME instrument. We know that after the cut-off date of 5 June, the EIC accelerator replaced the SME instrument, and the main novelties are the introduction, of course, of the blended finance, so the opportunity to, the possibility to apply for grant and also for grant plus equity. For the EIC accelerator, it's mandatory to apply only as a single for-profit SME. So it means that it will be not more possible to apply as a consortium of SMEs. And last but not least, new set of documents we have to submit to the Commission with the proposal template. Coming to the proposal template, indeed, we have, of course, the technical annex we already know because it's quite similar to the template for the previous SME instrument phase 2, with some more information in the implementation about the equity if we are applying also for blended finance. With the proposal template, we have to submit annex from 1 to 3 concerning the security and ethics issues, CVs of the staff involved in the project, and other information if we are also involving other third party. But what is really new is 2 new set of documents, Annex 4, that is a file Excel for financial and corporate information, and the pitch deck presentation. The Excel file is a document that you can download from the Funding and Tender portal when you start the submission. Is a document where you can summarize to the evaluators some information about current finance, previous financial information about previous 2 financial year, and also a forecast of financial data for next year. Basically, the information are concern revenues, expenditure, cash flow, and balance sheet. Some updated financial data related to cash flow and debt, information about company financial history. If we are applying for blended finance, also information about company ownership and capital structure, and information about current financing round. Sorry. For pitch deck presentation, we already know the structure of the pitch presentation because for the SME instrument we had to submit and to send to the Commission this document when we were invited to the second stage of evaluation, so for the interview. What is new now with the EIC accelerator is that that is mandatory to submit to the evaluator this presentation before the deadline, and it will not more possible to modify this document before the interview. So, thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. So again, additional effort when at the time of the proposal writing and application submitted, the proposal submission with those new a couple of forms, additional forms, to collect and provide financial information and to provide in advance this pitch deck, this presentation, even if you will not invited to the interview. So take some working days more to work also on this Of course, there are also the 30 pages of the, let's say, the technical annex. The interview, what is not changing from 2018, if you pass the first filter, the first step, the remote evaluation, you will be invited to the interview in Brussels, and you have a half an hour to get experts convinced about your value proposition, your business model, your team, your execution capacities, and so on. I had the pleasure now to introduce Anna Fontanelli from Monozucuri, which sustained the interview around 1 year ago, and she managed to get funded. So Anna, please show us a potential example on how to be convincing in 10 minutes in Brussels. Simulation of pitch interview.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anna Fontanelli. I'm the founder and CEO of Monozucuri. The company has been incorporated in Rome in October 2014, and our innovation has been also founded by a private venture capital, E2E, and also an institutional investors, Lazio Innova, that has been created by the Italian government in order to help emerging companies in the area of Rome. The company is privately held. I own a good part of the shares with the two investors, and also we put in place a stock option plan. So as you can see, we have also the CTO, Davide Raccagni, which is part of the shareholders. We are born with a team of 4 engineers. We are silicon experts. We were silicon experts. And we also had a development team in Armenia in order to be a lean startup and have skilled resources to be used with variable costs only when really needed. So the electronics has been driven by Moore's law for many, many years, which says the number of transistors in an integrated circuit doubles every 2 years. This law is not more that much true, because the transistor scaling is bringing us to have transistor of the dimension of an atom, and also the 28 nanometers technology node was the last node where we could see the cost that were, this is a hot spot, and the cost start growing from that point on. Also in the Samsung slide, you will see that the design cost, when you go into deep submicron technology, is growing enormously. So we have to go on more than more and our hyper project, so using the third dimension for the integration. So not trying to integrate anymore many transistors in the same component, but rather breaking the component into the different functionality, creating different components, and then using the third dimension in order to integrate also all the functionality that are needed in the advanced electronic systems. But here, everything depends, the integration really depends on the availability of new tools, methodology, and flows in order to automate the design process. Here we go with our technology, Hyper, which is an I/O planning and optimization software tool, which is really crucial to handle this architecture. We have here a very quick video, which is showing how you can grow. In this case, we have a system with a CPU and 4 high bandwidth memory. The interconnects that you need to handle in this configuration are hundreds of thousands, and an optimization technology is needed in order to handle them efficiently. The tool enables the designer to run this optimization in a matter of hours instead of weeks of work for different design teams. Here is the results, the 3D view of the connection, optimized connection. So we put a patent on this cross-hierarchical optimization algorithm, which has been filed in Italy and more recently in Europe and the USA. This is a first and only software technology in this area. This covers a feature that has been strategically developed in advance on market needs, and that is a missing piece of the complete design platform. This is a must-have to overcome the barriers anytime the third dimension is needed for the integration in many tera-million markets, like the Internet of Things, the autonomous driving, artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, as well as networking and big data. So in this market, we have plenty of opportunity, but what the EDA industry, the electronic design automation industry, doing in this area? They're just leveraging, adding functionalities to the tool they have, but still there is a lack, a technology gap, specifically in the area of IO planning and optimization, which is a critical enabler for this kind of architecture. So we are developing our hyper software technology in such a way that it can be easily integrated in all the design platforms that are available today on the market. But let's take a look at the competition. The electronic design automation is an ever-growing market, which is dominated by 3 huge companies that are having more than $8 billion revenue every year. Since 2002, the big 3, as I called it, are growing by acquisition. So they are not keen to invest in R&D expenses. Rather, they are acquiring enabling technologies as soon as this technology has been demonstrated on the market. So we will be with hyper strategically market ready by 2020, a little bit in advance to the market needs for massive adoption in a mature market. What is our business model? What do we sell? We do sell software licenses, tailored solution, so customization for the customer, and skilled workforce. We have a product family. We have ANOI, which is the design platform. On top of ANOI, we will grow a number of features. One of these is the big block, which is represented by the 2.5D solution, the hyper solution. That is the aim of this project. The licensing mechanism is on a yearly license fee. The services are training, customization, technical support, and design services. We, of course, have registered the trademarks of Monozukuri as well as of our platform ANOI. And our target customers are huge semiconductor industries, as well as IC and IC package design houses all over the world. The commercialization and market strategy is working actively using the network that we have consolidated in a number of years, and using also the channel of the vendor sales and of the distribution. So we are actively working with leading EDA and early adopters. In order, we have signed already a marketing loan agreement with Synopsys, which is the #1 of the market, in order to integrate our solution with their full design platform and try to sell our technology within their complete solution. But also we have started preliminary work, a couple of design run with ST Microelectronics in Agrate Brianza, Italy. The management team has a huge number of years. As I mentioned before, we are silicon expert, having worked for EDA companies as well as major semiconductor companies. And here is our organigram. In conclusion, we aim to fill a technology gap in the electronic design automation tool chain. And the technology is RTL6, and we are ready to activate a technology partnership with the customers. What do we need by the European Commission? We need a financial boost in order to speed up the development, growing the R&D team, the development team, to complete the integration within all the design platform in order to facilitate our entry in the market, and to validate the technology and demonstrate the technology on real-life customer design, running a wide-scale commercialization starting from Europe and Italy, Europe and Israel, and then moving to the US and the Far East.
and 9 minutes, 51 seconds. Timing was perfect, thank you very much. One of the rules for the interview in Brussels is that the company might be represented by up to 3 people, hopefully from the top management, founder, head of departments, international sales department, business department, and so on. What about your case? You were alone with other colleagues, with other shareholders?
Well, I took a different decision. Instead of bringing with me people working on the preparation of the project and so on, I decided to take with me technical people. So Francesco Rossi, the engineering manager, was with me, and also the guy who worked to the optimization algorithm. Also to show that we were a strong team, there was synergy among us, and it worked.
It worked, yeah, definitely. Would you like to list 3 elements that, in your opinion, helped you in convincing, get the experts convincing in Brussels? One of them maybe is that consider that those experts, those panels will meet like 20 companies in 4 or 5 days. So they meet a lot of companies per day, 4 or 5. Demo, videos, practical examples could help, no? What was your experience?
Wow. First of all, you have to resist to a huge number of incoming questions. So the people were putting 2 questions, you were able to answer very quickly to the first question, then another guy was asking another 2 questions. So they are checking if you are able to maintain this rhythm.
Yeah.
And the reason is that if you are very fast and quick in answering this question, you have a deep knowledge of the program that you have written.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the main, you have to be prepared to answer all questions and to have the right person in the room. We got also 1 single technical question, and Filippo could give the answer. So it was useful to have also
Good choice, even because the most of experts you will meet are from, let's say, the business side, and a lower number about the, let's say, with a technical expertise, at least so far. Now we'll see with the new approach and with the enhanced pilot. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you. Thank you all. A big applause again for our national success cases. Thank you. We are going to the conclusion. Now, Alessia, you have very short presentation about some additional tips on how to better prepare the SMEs, and now EIC accelerators, including how to pitch, how to pitch in Brussels.
Yes, thanks to Antonio, and good evening to everybody. As Antonio was saying, I have just a brief presentation, and I would like to present you some practical tools that you can use in order to approach the proposal. These tools have been developed thanks to the Access for SME project. Access for SME project is a network coordinated by APRE, and it involves 12 core partners and a lot of associated partners. First of all, you can find tips for the pitch session. So you can find suggestions and examples that allows you to prepare the perfect pitch deck that you will present in Brussels. The annotated template helps you to create the perfect proposals. So you find suggestions, examples that helps and suggests you on how to prepare the perfect EIC SMEs proposal. Some other practical tools. These are very useful for the financial part of the proposals. So the value proposition tool that refers to the excellence of the proposals, the market analysis and competitors analysis, the revenue and the pricing model, and the financials models that helps you to finalize the impact section of the proposals. Moreover, you can find all these guidelines that allows you to understand how to approach all of these tools. Everything is available on Access for SME website, so don't hesitate to download them and use them for your proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessia. Thank you. Just one more thing. After the summer break, thanks to the Commission, we will go ahead with a new NCP network dealing and focusing with the EIC. So we will adapt many of those tools, and we will create new tools both for Pathfinder and the accelerator. Now we are really in the conclusion of this long and fruitful day. Luisa, I will switch in Italian for the conclusion, but you are from Spain, so I think you will understand almost everything. Lascio il podio a Stefano Firmo di Mediocredito Centrale, come apre aggiungo, di Mediocredito Italiano, scusate, Intesa San Paolo, gruppo Intesa San Paolo. Da parte mia e da parte di tutta Apre, chiaramente noi vogliamo ringraziare la Commissione per questo grandissimo evento, tutti gli speaker, tutti voi partecipanti e nuovamente Mediocredito Italiano, Intesa San Paolo, Gruppo San Paolo per la bellissima sede che ci ha ospitato oggi, quindi grazie mille e speriamo di andare avanti con la collaborazione. Grazie a tutti, dottor Filippo.
Beh, grazie, è tardi e quindi non voglio rubare ulteriore tempo, la giornata è stata intensa, impegnativa e quindi voglio veramente occupare pochi minuti ancora del vostro tempo. Volevo ringraziare davvero Jean-David Malot, che credo sia ormai andato, ma in generale tutta la DG Research della Commissione Europea per questa opportunità di scambio così franco, così diretto, così aperto, così trasparente con tutto l'ecosistema italiano e per aver aiutato a organizzare questo roadshow qui a Milano. Ringrazio ovviamente l'Apre per averci aiutato, a coorganizzare sostanzialmente questo evento e per il lavoro che fa quotidianamente su questi fronti. E lasciatemi anche con un po' di orgoglio ringraziare tutte le strutture di Intesa San Paolo e di Mediocredito che si sono molto spese per rendere questa giornata una giornata di successo, così partecipata, con cui fino alla fine molta gente è rimasta ad ascoltare e a prendere appunti. Io credo che la sfida che tutto l'ecosistema italiano ha di fronte per migliorare la sua performance in una concorrenza sempre più forte, sempre più difficile sui fondi della nuova programmazione europea, è una sfida molto importante, molto significativa, a cui per certi aspetti il nostro ecosistema non è abituato e rischia, l'ho detto anche nel mio intervento, rischia un po' di essere perdente. Però questo deve spronarci a fare meglio, a far evolvere di più il nostro sistema, a renderlo più competitivo, più coeso e più capace di andarsi a prendere i fondi europei. D'altra parte in Europa con l'EIC è stata lanciata una sfida che io considero una sfida davvero trasformativa e per certi aspetti rivoluzionaria, sia sul Pathfinder che sull'Accelerator, e bisognerà far sì che tutto l'ecosistema italiano abbia la possibilità di vincere queste sfide e di portare su questa platea il prossimo anno un numero di aziende più forti, più nutrito, più significativo rispetto a quelle che abbiamo visto oggi, che però ci hanno fatto toccare con mano quanto sia articolato, complesso e selettivo il processo. Credo che da questa giornata venga anche una chiara indicazione sulla coesione che l'ecosistema italiano ha nell'affrontare questa sfida e sulla volontà di giocare tutti assieme a supporto delle start-up e delle piccole e medie imprese italiane, avendo anche l'orgoglio, a mio avviso, di portare l'Italia in Europa a vincere, a essere forte e a essere ben rappresentata. Quindi io davvero ringrazio davvero tutti per aver partecipato, per aver avuto anche la forza di avere uno scambio con la Commissione molto franco, molto diretto, credo sia stato molto utile. Credo che oggi Jean-David Malot sia tornato a casa a Bruxelles con un bel po' di appunti e questo era esattamente ciò che volevamo da questo evento. Grazie ancora e buona serata a tutti.